Thanks so much for that introduction, Albert. I appreciate it and the opportunity that you've given me to come and to be with you here at the Kiwanis Club for a little while. First of all, I want to salute you for what you do and for the spirit that you exhibit in being a part of something that is community oriented, that's service oriented. You want to do and give to your community, and that's very important. And I salute you for that. I have had on occasion opportunity to speak through the years. I teach Sunday school class, been doing that for a number of years, so I speak on a weekly basis there. I was, as you may or may not know, the mayor of Waynesboro for 8 years, in public service here locally for 8 years, and during that tenure had a lot of opportunity to speak publicly. So I was concerned in communicating and understanding communication and my role in it from an individual standpoint, one-on-one to group settings. And I came across somewhere along the way a model for getting your message across to either a group or to an individual. And the model is basically this. You tell your audience, be it a group or an individual, what you're going to tell them. And after you've told them what you're going to tell them, you tell them. And then after you tell them, you conclude by telling them what you told them. As we think about that model for a minute of communication and getting your point across, I want to make a couple of points here, sidebars if you will. The first one is a Latin phrase, and I can't pronounce the phrase, but it says this: the reception is only as good as the receiver. The reception is only as good as the receiver. I want to elaborate on that with an analogy, with a football analogy. This is a big football area. Wayne County is a big football community. So we're going to use a football analogy here. The reception is only as good as the receiver. You can have the best quarterback in the world, and he can throw beautiful passes, tightly spiraled, that can hit his receivers in the belly, in the chest, in the face, in the hands every time. Perfect passes. But if that receiver cannot catch it, it's no good. No matter how good the pass is, if the receiver cannot catch it, it's no good. The same thing comes in communications. You can have something of tremendous value that you want to convey, but if your audience can't catch it, you haven't accomplished anything, be it in an individual or a group. If you want to communicate to somebody something, you have to present it in a way that they will listen and in a way that they can receive what it is you're trying to convey. You have to know that. You need to know that. Because we have to communicate daily. And sometimes our livelihoods depend on our capacity to communicate effectively. I make my living communicating. I'm a salesman. I make my living doing it. So, and you do too. You have employees, or you have to communicate all the time. Another point is this. And I found this side from political context, is that the Bible says this too: cast not your pearls before swine, for they will consume you. That is to say, you can't tell somebody something that won't listen to you. And I see real context here in terms of adversarial relationships, where someone's got a strongly different opinion or belief than you do about something, and you're trying to communicate with those people, and you or that person, and you know they will not hear you. Do not go there. If they won't hear you, if they don't have the capacity to hear you or the willingness to hear you and receive you, they will gobble you up, particularly if they are adversarial, in an adversarial position. They will gobble you up and try to destroy your message and all that goes with it. That's the truth of communication. So we have our model and we have a couple of truths about communication. Now, about the model, Frank Sinatra, old Blue Eyes, had a song, I Did It My Way. And in my short time of communicating with you today, I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then tell you, and then tell you what I've told you. I'm going to let you try to discern what my point is. You may find that I don't have one. Respectfully submitted, the message, the reception is only as good as the receiver. I hope that you can find something here today that you would find useful. You might just see wow, I could have had a V8 type revelation, something you already know, but just be reminded of it. But whatever the case, I hope that my time communicating with you today is not in vain for you. It's not going to be for me. I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited about being here. Any versus outie. What did he just say? I said any versus outie, and I'm gonna raise the ante a little bit. I'm gonna say, which one are you? Are you an any or an outie? Albert, just stop right there. You don't have to pull your shirt up and look at your navel. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. I saw a movie one time, Pulp Fiction. I've seen it a couple of times. I like the movie. And in a scene, John Travolta and Uma Thurman were sitting in a restaurant eating dinner one night, and they were getting to know one another. She was trying to get to know him, and they were speaking, and she leaned over to the table, and she looked him in the eye and said, "Do you listen, or do you wait for an opportunity to speak?" That question, the first time I heard it, really struck a chord with me. Do you listen, or do you wait for an opportunity to speak? What about you? What about you? What is your default in this respect? Now, default, I want to define that for you. There's a couple of meanings that we find in Webster's. One is failure to do something required by duty. That's like if you've entered into a contractual agreement and you don't live up to the terms of that contract, then you are in default. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is the other definition of default, which is this: a selection made usually automatically or without active consideration. So when you're speaking to someone, which way do you go? Are you in any or are you in outie? Do you listen to what's being said to you, or are you just waiting for an opportunity to tell them what you think? Are you prone to speak or prone to listen? Are you an any or an outie? John Fitzgerald Kennedy had some marvelous quotes that are recorded in history for us all to read. One of my favorites is this: ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Are you an any or are you an outie? Would you rather give or would you rather receive? Are you an any or are you an outie? Ask not what your community can do for you, but what you can do for your community. Ask not what your elected officials can do for you, but ask what you can do for your elected officials. This any versus outie deal is a big thing. It's an important concept. If you think the Bible is important, and I do, it's addressed in the Bible. The Bible has plenty to say about innies and outies, if you just read it and know what you're looking for. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. Any versus outie. Be a servant. Be a giver. Any versus outie. Outie versus any. It's important to know. It's important to understand.